So where there are many different wicked ways to play when it comes to game boxes and game sticks, we have reviewed a lot of them. However, when it comes to emulation, there was always a catch and there was always a limitation. However, there is a different way to play. So in this video, we are going to be taking a close look at this GIgabyte mini PC. I didn't even know there was a GIgabyte PC out there. However, it is an i3 6th generation. But how does it actually work? It's quite simple. There are different ways to emulate games now on a PC. The most easy way, if you just want to use this mini PC, is using a hard drive. So there are different brands out there. For example, King Hank has a couple of them. They're like ready to go. Or you can get yourself a different brand like PowkyPad. Different hard drives you can just plug in, boot from the BIOS, and in this case you're going to be booting up into Batrocera and make a plug-and-play mini game box that has amazing overall performance, particularly when you're looking at the money you're paying for. So this mini PC has like a very nice overall quality to it. At the front we're finding 2 USB ports, even a headphone jack out and a microphone in that we're not going to be using with Batrocera, and a beautiful i3 Intel sticker. At the top we're finding just a plastic case and an on-off switch. And at the back we're finding different connections. This mini PC comes with an HDMI out, so that's going to be super convenient. And another extra 2 USB ports and an RJ45. That's going to be interesting and also very just easy if you want to update Batrocera itself. But how does it actually work and how are we getting into the Batrocera? But I want to be clear, you can get yourself a very cheap hard drive. Can be all kinds of different sizes. Of course, the bigger size means more games you can store. You can also get yourself an SSD. Or you're going to get yourself something else like an SD card if your mini PC has the option for putting up from an SD card. There are so many different ways where you can just install the Batrocera software. But in this case we're not going to be doing any of these things. We're just going to keep it simple. We're just a plug and play drive. We're going to be plugging in and booting it through the USB booter. And we're just going to be playing some retro games and just see how far we can push this device. Okay, so it's ready to go. Everything has been configured and plugged in. However, for the controller, the situation, we have different kind of controllers. For this video, I'm going to be using my Xbox 360 controller. There are also one like I think let's call them the aftermarket ones from AliExpress. They are slightly different, but the overall quality is quite good. And you can just use them for Batrocera and they cost almost nothing. Just old school with the wire, going to be plugging it in the front, and you can just go all the way up to 4 players and play games from the N64, Dreamcast, the menu system, even MAME with 4 players without any problem whatsoever. But let's get into the Batrocera. This is one of those systems I love to use with these mini PCs. So once loaded up, let's plug in the Xbox 360 controller, because that is one of my favorite controllers to actually use in this, because it's very nice and compatible with most of the images already. With Batrocera we have so much more to emulate when it comes to platforms, but thanks to the emulation and the PC combination, we do have way more better performance than your typical game box that costs almost nothing. However, let's get into the settings and let's get into, let's say, the information part to do a quick overview. So at this moment, this is only a 500 gigabyte, let's say, version. So you can see that the temperatures are 36 Celsius idle, so that's not bad at all. So over here having the OpenGL 4.6, this is the 6th generation, the 6100U, and this thing has actually a core count of 4. So this is a quite powerful overall performance beast for not a lot of money when you're comparing this with the PCs that we have seen in China. And I mean, like the plug and play solutions that had like very old i3s or Celerons in the inside. So I'm expecting more emulation performance, way better than, let's say, those things, but maybe we can do a little bit of tweaking with the upscaling too. So if you're just going to be looking into some Game Boy or other handheld devices, if you just want to look into, let's say, some 8-bit, 16-bit stuff, 32X of the Sega, those will run just fine. So I don't want to really focus this video on there, but we can play so much different stuff without any problem. I love the bezels. You can shut them down, you can remove them. You even have you can have the option for 60:9 or widescreen shenanigans. Everything is possible with the Batrocera, and we can mess around with it if you like. So let's try some GameCube and trying a very difficult game to emulate. I've been even upscaling it to 720p. 1080p would be possible, but you're going to be, like, say, messing around with it to see which game will run perfectly. So let's say if you're having two-dimensional games, you can maybe even try 1080p, 2K upscaling resolution, Going through the game, it will start slowly to run a little bit better, but the overall performance when it comes to this game, it's quite surprising, particularly when you're looking at the price we're paying now for these mini PCs. So if you're on a budget and you have like this very cheap mini PC, you always need to take consideration with an i3 or maybe a different older chip. Yeah, you need to have like some a little bit of tweaking going on, even also with Batrocera. You can see that, or also hear that it struggles now at this moment. So let's get into the game. Wait a little bit. Let's start off and just play through it. You will see sometimes it getting a little bit better with the Dolphin emulator. But for the 720p emulation performance on this older 6th generation i3 is not bad at all. I would not like upscale it to 1080p. Because so far it does already struggle on 720p. But it's just amazing to see how much we're paying for a mini PC like this and how great of an overall performance. Think about if you're getting more PCs like these, getting cheaper and cheaper over time, and you can just play these games for a fraction of the money later on. However, absolutely great performance, so let's move on to some other gaming. But how about Sega Saturn? I'm just going to be playing this on native resolution because I've been seeing that it struggled a lot on the cheaper game boxes on native resolution. And now with such a cheap game box, we can actually just, or mini PC, making it a game box, and we can just play all kinds of cool games of the Sega Saturn emulator. You can always like check out if you can upscale it with some certain emulators like the GIgabyte and just see if you can get some overall better performance. Of course, the same, there's a craziness, but some of the games are not that demanding. Think about the two-dimensional stuff. Why do I get myself shot by this guy? What I love about these mini PCs is that we can have some good Sega Dreamcast emulation performance. So this time I just wanted to set it to 1080p. You can tweak, mess around with it, maybe with 2K resolution. But this just looks amazing. Having full 60 FPS, no stuttering so far I have seen with Dead Alive 2. So this is just great. But even more important, can it run Doom? That's of course a question that we always need to ask ourselves. And yep, we can actually play Doom. But we can actually play this on, let's say, very cheap game boxes. So if you want to play this certain kind of games like ports of Doom, Hexen, Quake, Wolfenstein 3D, you know, the really old school stuff. Yeah, you can just play this on a basic game box. You don't need to spend that amount of money on, let's say, a mini PC. But it's actually a very fun addition. Next up, let's try a little bit of a cruise in the USA with the N64 emulator. And this has the simple reason, because this is such a difficult game to emulate on most cheap game boxes. And you know, when you just want to play these old school games, you don't want to have any stuttering. And with these mini PCs, it's finally possible. And when we paid like hundreds of euros or dollars for, let's say, different kind of mini PCs back in the day, now we just have like this very cheap box that can just actually play all of these games. And what you can also do is like do a little bit of tweaking with the rendering resolution, where we can upscale it to higher resolutions and see if we can even get better performance or bad performance on high resolutions. But that's something you can do with tweaking. Native resolution, it's for me okay now. But let's push it to the limit. Let's try another N64 game. 1080p or at least like full HD upscaling. And let's see how it's going to be handling this. I have no idea if everything has been configured correctly, but so far the performance is so much significantly better than the general game box that plays on native resolution and stutters all of the time. And again, what I mentioned before with cruising the USA, you can always like mess around with a little bit of, let's say, scaling. If you want to have certain games to a different resolution, because they're just less demanding than a GoldenEye or another game. Nintendo DS is another system that I find okay when it comes to the gameplay itself. Now with a bigger screen, this is so much better playable. We can use the right joystick for navigating the touchscreen. We can just have this weird pause menu. Pressing the joystick, we can just switch between these, let's say, displays. But that's it. I don't like it all. So let's get into some PlayStation, and where we have seen a lot of great performance now with native resolution on cheaper game sticks. With the mini PCs like this, we can upscale it to 1080p. You can check out if you want to get 2K or 4K resolution going on. However, I will always be too careful if you have not a lot of cores. So maybe if I have like an i7 of this chip, I would try to see if I can manage to get it working with a better overall GPU inside. But beside that, it's quite overall nice that you can play 1080p PlayStation 1 because this looks so much better. Fun fact, this actually runs through the DuckStation emulator. Let's get ready for the next battle with some PlayStation 2 emulation, and we're running it on 1080p. And you can see we're having full speed with this particular game. Absolutely amazing that we can just have like 1080p resolution now. That's kind of funny if you think about it. Like a lot of these, like say, cheaper game boxes you can buy, plug and play ready from AliExpress, they are having so many issues with PlayStation 2 on native resolution. With such a basic GIgabyte mini PC with a 6th generation, an i3 in it can run this on 1080p. That's just amazing. Indeed, perfect. But getting in the PlayStation 3 emulator, I don't find this very interesting to actually test out. And with the simple reason, the loading time for the games are just so freaking long. It's just annoying. You can get yourself a cup of tea or coffee before you can actually start a game itself. So yeah. But throughout the game, you can just see that it is actually playable. But I think if you're going to be having an, let's say, more demanding game than Castlevania, it's not going to be an overall great performance. You can see that we do have a playable situation over here, but no, this is not the way how you want to experience PlayStation 3. The loading times are so freaking long, and then having some games are stuttering in the beginning. And I think if you're having the very cool two-dimensional games like fighting games, those will have okay, better performance, but again, I think for PlayStation 3 we just need to have way more power, and now we're finding his limitations of the GIgabyte mini PC with the i3 in the inside. But for PlayStation Portable, I just want to go all out with 4K resolution rendering, having an unstable frame rate. So what we can do actually is getting some, let's say, 2K resolution. You can see that it dips, so 4K is way too much for PlayStation Portable, and where I think Need for Speed The Rivals is not even the most demanding game. So when it comes to emulation of PlayStation Portable, I think the maximum is going to be 280p, maybe 2K resolution. So let's move on into some MAME emulation with Tekken. So I've always been saying in my videos that MAME Tekken is quite difficult to emulate on the cheaper game boxes, the sticks and etc. But the mini PC, the i3, handles it perfectly without any problems. You can just play the Tekken 3 game. But another thing I just wanted to test out, so with this particular game we also have the Tekken Tag version, and that is even more demanding than the Tekken 3. So let's see how that handles in combination with the i3 6th generation. So far so good when it comes to the emulation itself of the game. And I've been seeing a lot of mini PCs from China or AliExpress struggle with this game. But also this game runs perfectly without any problem whatsoever. It's kind of exciting, to be honest. And of course the old famous Killer Instinct 2, another game that is not compatible with many game boxes, but it is actually with the MAME and this very cool mini PC. So I'm quite surprised of the overall performance on this mini PC, how much we can actually play, where this is just a native resolution, no let's say upscaling going on. This is just great to experience these games again. I can still remember that the Xbox Classic also has the option to play this. I'm just bashing buttons here. So when it comes to Killer Instinct, I'm more of a Street Fighter / Tekken player. I've been not playing this game a lot. I can still remember playing it on the Super NES and later on the N64. Okay, so one of the things we need to take consideration getting a mini PC like this, the form factor. It's absolutely amazing, and this thing is quite silent. However, what is the possibility for upgrading? So with this particular model, that's unfortunate where you don't have the option for putting in a 2.5 drive. So we cannot put it in the machine itself. However, what you can actually do, if you don't want to use Windows at all, you can just actually reflash the one that is inside. This is a 120GB Kingston that comes with it. It's already pre-installed with Windows 11. Then if you're going to be putting in, let's say 1TB or another drive, you can just flash your NVMe with a Batrocera, slip it in, and in this case you can boot straight into Batrocera itself and not use Windows at all. Of course, if you're going to be unplugging the drive, you can boot up into Windows, so we have like a dual boot situation if you want to. So this mini PC comes with 8GB of total, having dual channel for the maximum performance. So when it comes to the build quality, I'm quite surprised how good it is. I personally never seen it brand new, but this i3 is absolutely overall, it's a great for over performance, where we can like have a little limitation with upscaling, but it's quite good. But if you're going to be comparing this with a typical game box, so where the game boxes from China are getting really cheap now, so when it comes to the overall performance, it depends all you want to play. So I think with this mini PC, it's more if you're going to get into PlayStation 2, GameCube, Dreamcast and stuff like that. And you can even do a little bit of an upscaling. If you really care about those things, the game PC is absolutely one of those many cool ways with Batrocera. However, if you just want to get yourself some 8-bit stuff and you don't want to have all the hassle, these things are like plug and play solutions. This is just an example, but there are many out there. And having, let's say, an overall great performance with 8-bit, 16-bit, but that's one of the decisions only you can make. Okay, when you're looking at this setup, there are a couple of ways I already shown you that you can do. You can not buy this hard drive ready set up and you just have yourself a very cheap mini PC. You can maybe grab an old, like say, X input controller, that's something I recommend, or get one from AliExpress for not a lot of money, and you have like a super cool combination with overall great performance. Even GameCube, PlayStation 2, we can upscale it a little bit with some restrictions, and if you just want to set it up or you just want to slap a hard drive in, there are all kinds of different formats like 500GB, 1TB, 2TB, you name it, it's all up to you. Thank you all for watching. Let me know in the comments what do you think of this configuration. Subscribe to the channel and hit the little bell for more awesome wicked content. It will be great just to see you in the next video.